cup's worth of coffee to either a NutriBullet container or a container that will fit an immersion blender. Then 2 scoops of unflavored protein powder or a flavor that will go well with your coffee. Then 1 teaspoon of chia seeds and 1 teaspoon of hemp seeds. Now we're going to blend. Add the coffee to your coffee cup and top it off with some almond milk and add sweetener if that's how you like it. A final stir and that's it. To make 2 servings, clean 6 prawns like the one I have on the right. You might like to keep the tail on an extra one if you wish to decorate a bowl. Over a medium heat, melt 40 grams of butter and add a half teaspoon of garlic powder, then combine. Add the prawns and coat them in the butter. You will need to coat them several times while frying. When they have slight browning, turn them over and coat them in the garlic butter again. When both sides have browning, turn off the heat, remove the prawns and let them drain on a paper towel. Next, we will make a super easy and delicious seafood sauce. In a little bowl, add 1 tablespoon of tomato cooking sauce, 1 tablespoon of mayonnaise, a couple of drops of Tabasco and the same amount of Worcestershire sauce, then mix to combine. Now we are just going to put it all together and I'm going to show you 3 pretty ways to assemble your prawn cocktail. The first way is using half an avocado. Yes, somehow I managed to find the world's smallest avocado. But anyway, scoop out some of the flesh to create a cavity for the rest of the ingredients. I added 10 grams of shredded lettuce and optionally you can add the remaining avo on top of the lettuce. I just didn't have space. Then add 3 garlic prawns, a couple of teaspoons of seafood sauce and garnish with chopped chives. If you just want to make it using a bowl, you sure can. Same as before, add shredded lettuce first, sliced avocado, then 3 garlic prawns, the seafood sauce, about 2 teaspoons, and top it off with chopped chives. And ta-da! I'm hanging a prawn with the tail off the side of the bowl. The third and my favorite way is using a lettuce leaf, and this way feels like you're eating tapas and of course there's less wash up. Right on top the lettuce leaf, add sliced avocado, 3 garlic prawns, 2 teaspoons of seafood sauce and garnish with chopped chives. I've just got to eat this right now. We're starting off again with 180 grams of finely grated cheese and my choice is Parmesan. To that, I added 1 teaspoon of baking powder. Now our binding agents, which is 2 teaspoons of xanthan gum and 1 teaspoon of gelatin powder. Give it a mix to combine all the ingredients and get rid of any lumps. For the wet ingredients, we are using 2 egg whites and a pinch of cream of tartar, and this time I'm using a hand mixer to fluff them up to stiff peaks. If you are using egg whites from a carton, you will need a 1/4 cup or 60 grams. Add the egg white mixture to your cheese mixture a little at a time, mixing in between, and form a ball of dough. Divide the dough into 2 so it's easier to work with. Then between 2 sheets of baking or parchment paper, roll out the dough to a thickness of about a couple of millimeters. Create a square shape, and you can see I just used my pasta cutter so it's easier. Then divide the dough into 2 triangles by cutting through it on a diagonal. And on the widest side of the triangle, create a small cut so it's easier to roll later. You don't want to use a lot of filling because you won't be able to roll the croissant easily. And as a guide, you can see I only used a teaspoon of the guacamole sauce. You would use about that amount for your sauce, and for the meat, I used 2 teaspoons of cooked shredded chicken. Spread the sauce and leave a border so when you roll, the filling doesn't fall out. Once you have added the filling, you want to start rolling from the widest side of the triangle. When you make your first fold, the dough will crack a little, and that's because you're basically folding it onto itself. Place on a lined baking tray and bake at 320 degrees Fahrenheit for 5 minutes. Turn the oven tray around, then bake for another 5 minutes, and this is going to ensure you have even browning on the croissant. Then turn the croissants over and bake for another 5 minutes. So your bake time is a total of 15 minutes. And here is how they should turn out. Lovely! On a baking tray lined with your silicone mat, spread 120 grams of shredded spinach that you have drained. We're going to make an engineered keto pasta sheet, so we're starting off with adding 3 eggs to your NutriBullet, 40 grams or 4 tablespoons of almond flour, 60 grams of softened cream cheese, 1 teaspoon of olive oil, 1 teaspoon of powdered gelatin, and 30 grams of frozen spinach, and I've drained all the water out of it. Give the mixture a good shake before you blend. Once blended, shake it a second time and blend again. Your mixture should be devoid of any lumps. Pour your pasta mixture over your spinach. Your other option is you can pour your shredded spinach into your pasta and give it a good stir and then pour it into your baking tray. Regardless of the method you choose, try to get your pasta sheet as even as possible so you can get an even bake. Bake the pasta sheet for about 10 minutes. The pasta sheet will be ready when you tap the middle and it's solid but a little sticky. You can then remove from the oven and let it cool. When it comes out of the oven, let it cool completely and it's ready for removing from the silicone mat. Lift your silicone mat and then peel it away like that. And for me, this comes away very easily. Place it on a cutting board. Add 200 grams of cream cheese straight onto your pasta sheet and evenly spread it as best you can. I'm spreading some everything but the bagel seasoning over my cream cheese. If you don't want to use this, you can just use salt and pepper or a little bit of garlic powder, whatever seasonings you prefer. Spread 200 grams of smoked salmon over your cream cheese. Do try to spread your salmon as evenly as possible, and do note I've left a little bit of a border there so that when I roll at the end I can seal it properly. Trim off the edges at the sides. Now roll your roulade. And this is how these look when they're ready. Absolute perfection. So pretty. Melt 2 cups of grated cheese in the microwave. Mine took about 1.5 minutes. Add 1 cup of almond flour and a teaspoon of baking powder and mix until fully combined. Roll out the dough between 2 sheets of parchment paper. I'm just tidying off the edges and cutting my dough into a rectangle shape. Set that aside for now and let's make the filling. Over a medium heat, add a teaspoon of olive oil. And when the oil is heated, add 1/3 cup of diced onions. It's about 40 grams. Saute those until it's translucent. Add 250 grams of ground beef, a teaspoon of garlic powder, half teaspoon of salt, a teaspoon of black pepper, a teaspoon of smoked paprika, and a tablespoon of tomato paste. Break up the meat and fully combine those flavors into your ground beef as well. After about 5 minutes, turn off the heat and your filling is ready. You'll see that you have a bit of liquid left over. When I scoop my filling, I'm just going to try and leave some of that oil behind. I don't want a dry sausage, but I don't want that one that's overly wet either. Share the filling out in 2 rows on either end of your pastry. Now we're going to roll the pastry towards the middle. This is what you're looking for. You've brought your 2 fillings together with the pastry and you've made 2 rolls. Now cut it in the middle. Add it straight onto a baking tray. Brush it with butter, so everything but the bagel seasoning can stick to it. I'm making cocktail sausage rolls, which is the mini ones. So at this point, if you want to cut yours, you would do it and not separate them out because you don't want your filling to fall out. Bake at 320 degrees Fahrenheit or 160 degrees Celsius for 15 to 20 minutes. And here they are, fresh out the oven. Place them on a paper towel to drain the excess oil.